Hello, fellow travelers. Welcome to Respawn Station. My name is Sri, and today I'm joined by Nick to talk about Assassin's Creed. Yes, we had a team meeting and we decided that we hadn't actually talked about Ubisoft enough, so we thought we'd come back to the table on this one. But no, honestly, we're actually going to talk about the Assassin's Creed Shadows reveal, which we actually have a reaction for that going up on the channel. By the time most people are watching this on YouTube, it'll be out. And if you're listening to this on podcast services, it's already out. You can go check it out over on our YouTube channel. But yeah, we're going to talk about all that stuff, but later we're going to get to that like another time, because right now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very important question to ask ourselves. Nick, what are you playing? And why is it not Assassin's Creed?
Well, it's not Assassin's Creed because I don't own many of them. So
Wow.
I've been chipping away at my physical backlog. And also playing games for this podcast here that you send me so graciously. So I'll start with the one that I mentioned before, which is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands.
Yeah.
Which I see that
did
I'm joined by Tina on the overlay here.
Yeah. I think that is yeah. But a little if you're watching this is mostly like a listening podcast. This is made for listeners, but occasionally we have small little things that make it worth it on video. That's not my face. That's gotta be a detracting factor. But Nick,
yeah,
how's Tiny Tina's Wonderland? Have you rolled credits? Are you done?
Not yet. I'm still chugging through it. Last time I think on the podcast, I was asking Austin in chat if it was worth, continuing, because I had only played, I think, like one session by that point.
Right.
Now I'm probably like 10-ish hours in, I'm guessing. I put some time into it. I'm a little bit past the halfway mark in the story, I believe.
Ooh.
So I still have a good amount to play.
Sure.
But the game is fun.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that there's a little bit of hesitation in my voice there, but the modern Borderlands, like, I'm a big fan of 2, which I still think to this day is probably the best one in the series.
Right.
Wonderlands it's like junk food to me, which is like it's kind of like my turn my brain off and play kind of thing.
Right.
Like I was sitting there playing last night, and it's like I'm having fun playing this game, right? I enjoy shooters. I like the fantasy stuff. Like the humor is like, hit and miss with me for Borderlands, but like it's not usually offensive to me or anything.
Right.
But like I was sitting there and I just kind of realized that I was like sitting there with this like stone expression on my face while playing. I find that so funny, where I'm just like, they're all cracking jokes and like trying to have a fun time. I'm just like, I'm playing.
Yeah.
But having fun with it. It does some different things to Borderlands, so like it kind of justifies the like subtle name change to Wonderlands, despite still involving some of the same characters and stuff from the story, just in different roles.
Right.
It's kind of like the fantasy aesthetic is what drew me in the most, and what is still like keeping me invested, because they do have some like cool set pieces, and it's just kind of fun, because they still have like guns. It's not all medieval themed. It's not like they do have like these crossbow weapons and swords and stuff, but it's not like focused on that. They still have like rocket launchers and shotguns and all this other stuff. So I just the simple fact of like shooting a skeleton archer with a shotgun is like fun to me. So, and I don't think we get a whole let me correct myself there. We don't get enough like fantasy themed shooters in this kind of vein. There's several.
Have you heard about the Legends of Avium?
Immortals of Avium?
Sorry, shit. Fuck, I did myself in that one.
I have not heard of Legends of Avium, but Immortals I have.
Fuck.
But yeah, like there's like some examples of it and stuff, but it's a fun kind of romp of a shooter. Right. And like I said, I'm just kind of like turning my brain off. Like the story, like there's enough for me to follow there, but most of it's just kind of like me laughing at the odd joke every 10 to 15 minutes or so. Not really like getting super invested in these characters, because most of the time in like very Borderlands style, a lot of it's just kind of like they flash in on like a radio or whatever to like talk to you. You're not really
Right.
interacting with characters all that much. Um, but the gameplay's fun. It's just more Borderlands. So, you go into the area, you get a bunch of loot, you shoot a bunch of guys and watch the numbers fly, and then get more loot and then move on. So, yeah, it's I not to like go on forever about Wonderlands. I'm enjoying it. It's fun. But it's not really, super elevated or anything
Sure.
for me personally. It's just kind of like something that I'm having fun with in my side time.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, I suppose if we're talking about fun within our spare time, I'll jump in and talk a little bit about what I've been playing, because so last episode we, kind of pretty typical, after we finish the podcast, Nick and I will kind of hang on for a few minutes, just kind of chatting. And I had mentioned to him, I was like, yeah, I'm debating playing Dead Island Riptide. And he immediately went, oh no. And, that's when I knew that I had to play this game. No, I actually still wasn't sure. I was really going back and forth on it because, my like on stream, I've been playing the Callisto Protocol. By the way, shout out to Nick for subscribing to me last night. I appreciate it. And we, that's kind of only on stream, so it's not like something I do when I'm, off stream, just kind of relaxing. And so it turns out, I guess I must have picked it up during some sale or something, but I own Dead Island Riptide on Steam, and so I downloaded it on my Steam Deck. And here's the thing. I'm not even sure where this fits into the chronology overall. I think I haven't played any Dead Island game. So I think it's like right after the first game. It's like, I don't even know. It could be that these are the same main characters as the first game too. I'm ignorant of that fact if it is. But I believe it's right after the first game, and you play as a group of stranded survivors on an island of zombies. Would you believe it? About 3.5 hours in, and an hour of that was just right before this podcast, because I lost internet for about 2 hours, and in that time, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna kick back and kill some zombies. And I have to really emphasize that this is not just a review, or my thoughts, I should say. This is not just thoughts on Dead Island Riptide. It's specifically about Dead Island Riptide on the Steam Deck, because it feels like that's like the game was made for this console. It's not like the graphics are just old enough where you can get like pretty high, you can, get good fidelity or kind of good looks out of it without the Steam Deck overheating too much. And you can get some decent playtime too. Like you're not just, 30 minutes and you're like, oh, my Steam Deck's dead. And
gotta go leash myself to a wall outlet.
Yeah, right. And it's really nice to just like what I was doing. I was sitting back on the couch just playing some Dead Island, and I had the Steam Deck has 4 reprogrammable buttons on the back, and so I kind of did some of that to kind of get it how I wanted it, and it's just easy to play. I can just pick it up, play a little bit, and not worry too much. It really is that same thing that you're talking about with Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Maybe Wonderlands might be a little bit better depending on how like that whole like the narrative carries out, but the narrative here is just like just run of the mill. It's like we're trapped on this island, and there's like we got to figure out a way to get out of here. So we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I'm 3.5 hours in, and it's okay, but that's perfectly fine because that's what I wanted. Can't complain too much about it.
I like you. I've never really played any of them. I've seen them from afar, and from everyone that I've heard talk about it, it's like Dying Light, fell so that Dead Island fell so Dying Light.
Right. Yeah, it is.
However that phrase works.
Sure.
Yeah,
Um,
like I've just always heard that Dead Island's played kind of second fiddle until the second one, because apparently, people kind of like that second one. So
Yeah, I heard Dead Island 2 is good, and I was actually going to play it, but I figured it'd be a nice co-op experience. I did the same mistake earlier in this episode, but I said Dead Rising. I think I keep making that
oh,
mistake. And I have played one Dead Rising game, so maybe it's like that. It's like pre set up in my head to just like that's what I would default to. But yeah, I keep saying, yeah, I'm playing Dead Rise. No, Dead Island. There's an island of dead, so there's a Dead Island.
Dead or Alive, Dead Island, Dead Space, Dead Rise. There's a lot of dead.
That's why I should listen to my parents and never played a video game. Would have made things a lot easier. Nick, after that though, last episode I believe, or no, on one of the previous episodes, we had mentioned this cool looking JRPG style RPG, turn-based RPG, I should say, called Terra Memoria. Now, you've played a little bit of it, and so I wanted to. What do you think so far? How is the game? And you're playing on the PlayStation 5. How does it play on the strong hardware that I'm guessing it probably doesn't need?
Yeah. So yeah, I put about like 2 hours into it today.
Nice.
And it is, for those who maybe didn't see the last episode or are not sure of what this game is,
Yeah.
it's an RPG, turn-based RPG, and it kind of has this like pseudo HD 2D look. That was something that I had mentioned in our previous episode about it, and I say it's a pseudo look because it's not like exactly like HD 2D. HD 2D being the kind of look that a game like Octopath Traveler goes for, where it's very kind of stylized pixel art. This game does have pixel art sprites, but a lot of the environments are kind of like regular 3D models and stuff like that. And then they have this sort of like tilt shift, like the foreground and the background are blurred kind of things.
Right.
Kind of a look going on for it. But it's like a fantasy themed RPG, and it's pretty fun so far. It's it's a little bit on the easier side from an RPG that I would have played. Like I don't play many turn-based RPGs, but I've put some time into a couple of them. And so far this game has a lot of mechanics that kind of, how do I want to say it? Like it has a lot of mechanics that make it really easy just to kind of hop in and play.
Nice.
Basically, like your characters will auto heal outside of battle. So far, there's not really been like healing items that I've had to use. Your characters have these magic spells, more or less, that you use during combat. And as far as I can tell, there's no real like limit on them. So like in something like a Pokemon, for instance, your certain moves will have a certain amount of
Right.
power points that once you run out of those, you can't use the move anymore. I haven't really run into that yet. And there's also no difficulty options from what I can see, so it seems like it's just like a standard kind of difficulty throughout the game. But yeah, the game so far in the 2 hours that I've played, it's been a little bit of a slower burn. It kind of starts you out and you're sort of under siege by this group of kind of like robot insects almost, and they have like a couple of battles here and there, and then you're kind of like exploring this city environment and going and talking to people and completing like I won't say they're like fetch quests, but it's like little miscellaneous quests that have you darting around to different parts of the city and all that. But the combat is definitely what interests me the most about it. I'm not sure if they are the first game to do this or not, but certainly the first game that I've played that has this sort of a mechanic where it has a timeline on the bottom of the battle screen.
Oh, I saw this, and it's like as the battle goes on, you can see how many, like a physical way of like where turns are.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a really handy feature for people like me because it shows you, and it shows you like where, if after a certain attack, where you'll then attack next, so that you can kind of coordinate your attacks really kind of cleverly if you have the brains for it.
Yeah, so it basically like it'll show like on this timeline like the enemy's positions on the timeline and your party's placements on the timeline, like you were saying, and different moves depending on their strength will set you further back in the timeline for your next turn.
Ah,
So basically, like if you want to use a weaker attack, it might throw you like 5 places down the timeline. So you can theoretically get more of those attacks off. Or if you want to use a stronger attack, it'll put you like 8 paces down.
gotcha.
So you kind of have some decision making on how you want to play out in the battle with the moves that you have.
Hmm.
The interesting thing though that I found in the early game is that enemies they have a little shield rating, and basically once you break their shield, it will automatically send that enemy to the end of the timeline.
Hmm.
And you sort of in games like Pokemon or Persona, there's also these elemental weaknesses.
Yeah.
So it'll show like on the HUD, what type of elemental attack like an enemy would be weak to.
Hmm.
And whenever you break their shields, you will, like I said, you'll send them back to the end of the timeline, and it'll open them up to all types of elemental damage. So basically, you get this really nice bonus of like sending them as far back as possible in their turns. So you get some good follow-up attacks after that. Plus, they're weak to like everything else.
Right,
So
right. I can see. I can
it's
see
a
what you're saying.
pretty satisfying little kind of loop they have. Like I said, it hasn't really been terribly too hard or all that complex yet, but the stuff is there even in the early game where I could see, if there's like a lot of enemies on screen, they all have different weaknesses, your party only has certain moves equipped or whatever. I can see how the difficulty could probably start to ramp up a little bit later on. But so
Sure.
far, like I said, like even I did like one of the first like what I'm assuming is a boss fight. It gave the impression of a boss and kind of came at the end of an area. um Even that one, it was just like, I had to maybe like stop and heal a character once, but for the most part, like it was, not too challenging.
And I know
um
you're in the early game, but so there's no like, because for me, this game reminded me of Sea of Stars, and one of the things that when I reviewed the game, I had praised that game about was that it had a lot of these relics and stuff that made the game a lot more accessible. So it was essentially like what you're describing that Terra Memoria is kind of by default, seemingly, is how I played Sea of Stars with like the relics on. So I'm wondering, is there like any sort of relic system where like it makes the game harder in this case, like like kind of more like uh I guess disadvantages that kind of test you.
yeah. I haven't run into any yet. I think there is kind of like a gameplay modifying system. I've collected a couple of these uh like lapel pins,
Hmm.
and I think they do modify gameplay. I just haven't gotten to an area where I can actually like equip those or like,
I see.
see, like I'm not sure if it's just like if I can only go to like a certain location or there is a like a camp mechanic. I didn't really see in those menus if I was able to equip those. So I've gotten a couple,
Hmm.
but I'm not sure if any of them directly like make it harder on you or if it's more so a thing that's like, oh, you have, more armor or things like that to like benefit your
Right.
party. Um, the camp is actually something that I also wanted to mention because it had an interesting element to it where basically as you're in combat and stuff, you're gaining XP, but I wasn't leveling up at all.
Hmm.
And whenever I came to the first camp, it basically banks all the XP you would have earned from those battles at that moment. So basically, whenever I got to my first camp, I leveled up like 5 or 6 times
Oh,
from all
interesting.
the XP. So I'm not sure if there's like a mechanic yet that like maybe if you die with your XP, if it's almost like a soulsy kind of thing where
Oh,
you drop your XP. Like I said, I haven't
you
been
got
in
to
that
die on
situation, so
purpose. You
that
got to die on purpose
yeah,
for
I
research.
I gotta I gotta test it later. But yeah, it was another one of those kind of like satisfying little things where it's like, hey, you set up your camp, you're getting ready, to tweak a couple things with your build, but then you just get like, a ton of XP, leveling up your character.
you
So
know
far, that's only
the
really, I think, from what I saw, it affected like your health, your damage, and like your defense. I
uh
think were stats that bumped up, but
The
yeah, it
thing
was
that
just like
when I was
brutal.
looking at the game, the there's a lot of words used to describe games to kind of get you to be like, hey, this game may be something that catches my eye. The one that I thought was interesting for this game was that it was cozy. Would you describe this as a cozy game, Nick, in the first 2 hours?
Um, I laugh because this is not an indictment of the quality of the game or not, but because you phrased the question like that. While I was playing, the music is very soft
Mm-hmm.
and it's very laid back, and I was like starting to like almost nod off a little bit. Like I said, this isn't like an indictment of the game. Like it's completely fine and
Yeah,
all
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But like I was like I
So
just
it
sort of
is
like
cozy.
it was lulling me in. So from a certain point of view, yes, I could say that it is a cozy game. And maybe that is, part of the decision making behind me not making it super challenging. Maybe it is more so supposed to be like a more laid back RPG experience. Which if that's the case, I mean, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think that there would be really any, you know, these games don't need to constantly like tear you down and chew you up and spit you out. But
And that's the
yeah, that's
thing
just
for
something that I
me.
noticed.
Like, as someone who like, that's always how it's always been. Like, I'll try to go back and be like, oh, I'm gonna play these games that I haven't played before, and these kind of older turn-based JRPGs or something like that, or inspired by that. And I always get my ass handed to me in these games, and that's why it was so nice when I played through Sea of Stars, and I was like, oh, I was able to do it, that's why I was like, reading this, I was like, it's kind of like, I mean, they describe it like this is like a cozy a road trip almost, and I mean, here it literally says Terra Memoria embodies the holy trinity of the three C's: cute, cozy, and chill. Yeah, so that's really what caught my eye, and I'm glad it almost put you to sleep, Nick. But
Yeah, it
go ahead.
now that you say that, like that definitely makes a lot more sense based on what I've played. It's definitely not in your face. It's not like super like hardcore or anything. The
Right.
systems are pretty chill, like it's like it described. And
Hmm.
what one like really tiny thing that I like about it is, you know how when you're playing something like a Pokemon and you beat a Pokemon and it says like they fainted or
Yeah.
whatever. When the creatures die in this game, it's phrased as they bit the dust, and I really
I
like
like that.
that.
Yeah. But yeah, that was all about Terra Memoria. First impressions from Nick. That's from developer Le Motrade. I really apologize if I like said a curse word or something that I didn't know how to pronounce. But it is a French indie game studio, and the game Terra Memoria is out now on PC, Xbox Series XS, PS5, and Nintendo Switch, wherever your gaming home resides. With that said, so I will say there's in our script that we go through that we kind of both follow roughly for what we're going to talk about. There is another redacted on this week's, and Nick, it's not just redacted, it's double redacted. There's two games that I'm playing right now that I cannot talk
Oh
about
boy.
because they're both redacted. One of them, the embargo lifts tomorrow, and unfortunately we can't. It's one of the things I realized about our release schedule is that we go live on Wednesdays, and that means that it's great for Tuesday embargoes because we always hit those on Wednesday, but for Thursday embargoes we have to wait almost a week for them. So like last week I talked about Vampire Therapist, and that was 6 days after the embargo lifted. So hopefully it won't be too far off. But tomorrow, the game that I'm going to be talking about comes out tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. And though I will need that 6 days to kind of do more research with the game, so I'll say that. And the other game, though, just got my hands on it yesterday, and it comes out at the end of the month, so it's even further. You have to wait until pretty much until I think our first June podcast, I think, to hear my thoughts on that. I think that's how the calendar works out. So there's some things.
Planting these podcast seeds early.
Yeah, dude, I wasn't expecting it, but I was looking through because I was like, really, all I have to talk about is just Dead Island Riptide, and then yeah, but we'll talk about that later. It's time now to talk about what's going on in the headlines. Nick, there's a few things to talk about. We'll save the big one here, the first one that we have down for the end for a more natural transition. But here we go. Helldivers 2 again. Back in the news, but this time for a good thing, a positive note. Helldivers 2 has sold 12 million units in the first 12 weeks of release, which officially surpasses God of War Ragnarok's record. Crazy. Was not expecting Helldivers 2, especially knowing what Helldivers 1 was, and like having like people liked Helldivers 1. I won't ever deny that, but it was just like I would not have assumed that the Helldivers 2 would be as monumental of a success as it is.
I don't think anybody did.
No,
like,
and
it's crazy.
There's like a tweet or a post, from. Oh man, now I'm forgetting. It was one of the people that work on the game. I think it was like one of the creative director, someone high up, someone important. But that's not the important part. The thing was like they're like, hey, like no, we have the foundation now. Now we can focus on our goal, which is to make Helldivers 2 the best live service game you've ever played. And it really feels like, other than that, again, that fumble from last week where, the whole, login fiasco, it seems that things have fallen back on track, and, everything's kind of firing on all cylinders once more, which is awesome to see. It's really kind of crazy to... well, here's the thing, right? Like, you see fumbles on the internet quite often. I mean, it happens all the time. Be it, Sonic's teeth in that first movie trailer, or just recently with the developer of Escape from Tarkov, essentially releasing a paid version, like super expensive, like $150, $250 version of their game that has an additional mode that is exclusive to the people that paid for that version, but then there's another version of the game that was like $150 that was sold when the game first launched, or kind of was originally kind of being released, and that version guaranteed all future content. And then so like they're like, but this is not future content. This is a future game mode, and so it's totally different. This doesn't make sense. And then someone else tried to eat their pie and be like, hey, escape from Tarkov and come over to our game. And then they responded and then said, enjoy your 15 minutes of fame. I digress. There's a lot of fumbles in the gaming world, or the internet world, whatever you want to call it. But very rarely do you see a recovery after a fumble quite as well as I think Helldivers 2 has done. So congratulations to that team, and a seemingly well-deserved victory.
Real quick, I pulled up the Steam page for Helldivers 2.
Oh, yeah,
obviously we were talking about how, it was a bunch of review bombing going on for that. And I had heard, I haven't been in Helldivers 2 for about a month or so now.
You've played the game, right?
Yeah,
dude,
I have 30 hours in the game.
Oh,
me and my buddy were playing a good.
Wow, we need to get you talking about Helldivers 2 at some point, just to kind of capitalize on it.
But the community, it's one of those communities for a game that's like super in on like the vibe of the game, right? And so I had heard, from people that were still playing it, being like, now in universe we're gonna try to reverse the Steam bomb review bombing. So all-time reviews, it is sitting back at mostly positive again. It still says recent reviews are mixed, but obviously that's over time that'll probably bump back up because of this. But yeah, it has 634,000 mostly positive reviews and 334,000 in the mixed, which is insane.
That is a lot of a big number, and I didn't say it last time because I couldn't couldn't confirm it, and I didn't. This was not the thing I was gonna spend the time to look up, but I think there was some conversation in the community about turning the graph, the review bomb graph, into like a cape or a flag or something in the game, which I thought was pretty fun. If that does end up happening,
I could totally see that happening.
Yeah. But congratulations to them again. Oh, here's one that made me happy, Nick. X Defiant. Finally, we are approaching the launch week. Probably by the time that the next episode goes up, I will have played a little bit of X Defiant officially. Now that in its full glory.
Another tease.
Yeah. And maybe who knows? Maybe I'll convince Nick to join me if he's if I can pry him away from deadpanning Tiny Tina's Wonderland. But no, so a few quick dates. So currently, obviously, we're live right now on Wednesday, May 15th. And you can preload or pre-save, whatever you want to call it, X Defiant on May 16th. There's a pre-season debrief, or sorry, X debrief, as they
Come on.
as they coined it. I had to say it how they do it. That's going up on May 17th, and then the pre-season live goes live, I guess, on May 21st. But again, May 21st, that's when officially X Defiant will launch, and also that is the day that the Division Heartland will not launch. In fact, I hate to say it, the Division Heartland will not launch ever. It has been canceled. That happened earlier today. And I think Nick was the one that shared that news with me. Disappointing. It's crazy because I've been so stuck into Division 2. I've been playing. Actually, look. I don't want to just keep saying the games that I'm playing over and over again if I have if I don't have any new thoughts on it. That's me with Division 2. I play at least 2 hours of Division 2 a week, just hopping in, play it a little bit, stream a little bit. And the game is great, and it's got me thinking, man, I can't wait for this Heartland game to come out. And then Ubisoft comes out and says that they're not working on that because they want to focus on bigger games and kind of, I guess bigger projects. Which I can kind of understand on one hand, but also I feel like, if this team put in this much hard work, I get it. I mean, I get that it's a multiplayer game, so server, that's what you have to look into. Because I know people were outraged that Sega earlier this year or last year, they canceled this big Hyenas, right? Is that what that was called? And people were like, oh God, it was already pretty much good to go. Why isn't it? I mean, you kind of have to look at not just for these kind of games, not just the production costs, which can be high, but also the post-production cost of keeping up the servers and all that stuff. Ultimately, I think there's some point someone made a decision that the upkeep for that game was just not worth it in this current market. Maybe they saw Helldivers 2 and were like, we can't keep up with this.
Sorry, I think you and I are just kind of cursed.
It's what it is.
Back, I played Roller Drome, and then they got laid off and fired, and now you've playing Division. You're like, oh yeah, I can't wait for this new one, and it's psych.
Damn, dude, that's what it is. The podcast cursed. Hopefully it's good for all the indie games. We're wishing you the best of luck. But yeah, that's man. I really don't want to be here, on episode 22, which, by the way, like I was saying, 10 weeks in a row we've done this. Kind of crazy to think about, but
double digits.
Yeah. Actually, no, I guess 9 weeks. 9 weeks because this is episode 10, but we did do 2 and 3. Episode 2 and 3 were 1 week because of the interview and that. So 9 weeks still, but that's impressive. And but I would hate to get to episode 22. Realistically, I hate to get to episode 50 and then be like, hey guys, X Defiant's closing down servers now. That would suck. So I'm really hoping they don't. And again, we'll talk about X Defiant next week a little bit more, kind of once I get my hands on it and stuff like that. But
Street, put your stamp in it right now. Is there going to be a title or player card that says XD's nuts?
Oh man, I wish, but I don't think so. I don't think these nuts will pass. But man, XD's nuts is a good one. That's free marketing, Ubisoft. You can take that from us.
If it's not already in the game, I would say that there's a non-zero chance that is.
See, there's no. If it is, it would probably be with the Watch Dogs crew, like the DedSec. I feel like that would be the. I could see one of them rocking the XD's nuts. That'd be relevant for them. Nick, what's this next one here? about this new game, this elusive new game.
Yeah, so this was another bit of news that came out earlier today that from Square Enix, who is hot off. We spoke the other week about them canceling a bunch of projects and all that, and restructuring and focusing on big IPs and big games like a lot of companies are doing right now. They announced that there is a new game by Nier series producer Yosuke Saito, Nier director Yoko Taro, and composer Keiichi Okabe. I believe those are pronounced right. If not, I'm sorry. But basically, I forgot who exactly said it. I think it was the producer. But basically said it might be Nier, it might not be Nier. He laughs and then says, "That's about all I can say for now." So
that's all you need to give.
Nier obviously had a huge resurgence with Nier Automata, and recently within the last couple of years, there was Nier Replicant, which was sort of like a remaster, remake, one of those weird, like in the middle kind of projects of the original Nier.
Have you played one of these games?
I have not. This is the funny thing, which is I have all of them, but I've not played any of them.
Got to support them, but haven't made the time.
I played a demo for Automata when it was coming out, so like I played like the opening mission of that game, but that's been a couple of years now that I don't really remember it. I know it's character action mixed with like some bullet hell, and it tells very philosophical story and all. So I would imagine with all of this restructuring going on, though, this would surprise me with these specific individuals if this was not a Nier game that was coming out, especially after how successful Automata was and putting that series on the map. So Nier fans, look forward to that. I know Yoko Taro is a very interesting creative voice in the industry, so it'd be interesting to see what kind of direction they take a new game.
I'll just play Stellar Blade and be done with it. No. Speaking of Square Enix, though, one thing I thought was interesting. One thing I wanted to point out. So Square Enix says, and this Nick was maybe a little bit saying earlier, that they will make AAA games multi-platform as part of its new quote-unquote aggressive business plan. Now, this comes with, obviously, it follows the news of some restructuring. We don't know how many people exactly were impacted by that whole process of like restructuring, but this is kind of a shift in their marketing strategy to put their games on multiple platforms. To quote it, this VGC article. Let's see. The plan says Square Enix will, quote, aggressively pursue a multi-platform strategy that includes Nintendo platforms, PlayStation, Xbox, and PCs. And this is also, like, the plan also kind of includes releasing titles that have already exist on one console platform to other platforms as well. And that's
Sony money was not enough for them anymore because they've been pretty adamant about that first party exclusivity for things like Final Fantasy 16 and 7 Remake and all that. 7 Remake is on PC, and I think 16 is also on PC. I'm not sure.
Yes, I think so. I think so. But yeah, I mean, Final Fantasy 7 Remake is kind of a big, easy one to assume that will probably come to consoles and other consoles following this strategy. Mm-hmm. What I find interesting, though, is that, like, I appreciate that you like what Ubisoft is doing with their approach to this strategy of releasing everything on multiple platforms, and I do agree with it. Console exclusivity I think is becoming rarer and rarer. For some reason, that's hard to say twice. But as that's becoming rarer, Jesus, every time I say it now,
more rare.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe. More and more rare. I think it kind of reflects Xbox's strategy here going forward as well, because it's that idea that there was a report that I think trade analysts were saying that the PS5 outsold the Xbox Series X in the last fiscal year by like 5 times, which is crazy. But you have to imagine that if it's like Xbox or someone looking at these numbers and being like, well, we have all these IPs. We're collecting these things left and right, like Thanos with stones. So we might as well put some of this stuff on other platforms. And then subsequently, almost immediately, let's say roughly a month or two after that port happens, we shut down the studio. It's a brilliant strategy, really. Sorry, I'm still salty about this. But regardless, that seems to be where Xbox is heading as well, just kind of collecting IPs, seeing what they can work with, and hopefully that doesn't mean it's just a whole bunch of like live service games that are kind of pumping out. But I do think that there's a general trend. I don't know if you've kind of noticed this too, Nick, but I think there's a general trend of like live service games not kind of getting off the ground as much. I know like that Naughty Dog one recently got canned because I think like people from Destiny, like the Bungie team looked at it and were like, this isn't very good or something like that. So whatever that feedback was, that game's no longer happening. So there's quite a few live service games that are kind of lying on the cutting room floor.
It's weird. I feel like there's plenty of examples, Naughty Dog kind of being the chief one because you mentioned it, where they specifically came out and said that it was canceled because they saw that like it would change their studio's entire trajectory, basically. Like they would have to focus on this game and nothing else to make it a success. And so I definitely do see, some studios are like that, where they're like, we're just going to cancel this because it's not really going to end up being worth it in the long run. Whereas other companies, it seems like they're still adamant on trying, even if it does fail. It's like the potential reward of having a hit, I guess, is still too tantalizing for some of the people calling the shots at the studios and stuff. So I don't know. It's really weird. I feel like we're kind of in that sort of transition period where, the companies are kind of waiting on like the next big thing to latch on to, because live service seems like it might be a little bit too volatile. Right. But at the same time, I mean, every week you see another one still get announced and coming out, and relating to another news story we have here about like EA and stuff. I feel like they keep trying to tap that live service train, even though it's
this isn't originally on the docket here, but I do want to mention it because I thought it was interesting. So there's a game came out last year. Let me double check that just to late last year. And it was called Wayfinder. Have you heard about this one, Nick?
I can imagine the logo in my head, but I don't know.
So Wayfinder is I should say was a free-to-play live service game that was kind of like sort of like an MMO. I would actually describe it most accurately as Warframe, but more fantasy. And it's interesting that I say that because it's developed by Airship Syndicate and then published originally by Digital Extremes, who are famously known for making a little-known game called Warframe. Now, since the release of that game, unfortunately, Wayfinder, because of like server issues and stuff like on launch, it got just very negative reviews. I think they ended up like taking the game down or like kind of saying like, hey, we'll figure something out here and we'll get back to you guys. And they've officially, I guess, gotten back to us by that regard because they announced earlier today that, they're announcing Wayfinder Echoes. So I think it's almost listed as a whole new game, but essentially Wayfinder Echoes is a totally redesigned, restructured version of that original game. It's got both single player and co-op. It has one price instead of being a free-to-play live service game, so you pay $25. There's no microtransactions or in-game purchases. There's a new Wayfinder named Grendel, weapons and armory drops, new zone, and much more. It comes out on June 11th on Steam, PS5. So it comes out on June 11th for Steam. It comes out sometime in summer for PS5 and then sometime in the fall for Xbox Series X and S. So that's another situation of like these live service games that are kind of maybe reevaluating, like, hey, like, is this viable, and kind of moving past that way.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. I think it's also interesting that we opened up the news talking about Helldivers, and it's like I feel like many, execs and stuff are going to look at Helldivers, and that's probably going to be the new thing in the pitching process in the boardroom. Let's like, what if we have our own Helldivers? What if we have our own,
Right, right. What if it's Helldivers but with Halo?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you know what? You can actually apparently there's already mods that have Master Chief and Star Wars characters in there.
I'm not surprised.
But no, it is cool because one especially specifically with Wayfinder and stuff, it's kind of. I think it's pretty smart. I know it's a little bit weird of like people who kind of maybe already purchased stuff for that free to play version, and maybe I don't know how they're going to deal with that kind of stuff. But I do think that like the fact that there is solo play, the game is also Steam Deck verified. So like having offline play and that just really adds to a better experience, I think, than just being forced to play online and have to wait in stupid like queues to get on the servers and stuff like that. So overall, I think that is a better call, and I wish them the best of luck. Hopefully, everything, hopefully they'll pull a Helldivers 2 and make a good recovery from that rocky launch. Next up, some Sony news. Nick, what's going on over there?
So PlayStation/Sony kind of announced that they have 2 new CEOs. Because earlier, I believe in April, was the official departure of Jim Ryan, who is no longer leading up PlayStation.
Yeah.
And they have this dual CEO approach now. So the more recognizable name, at least to me, would be Herman Hulst, who was kind of in the Sean Layden kind of position at PlayStation for the last couple of years, kind of like the head of the Worldwide Studios, I think was the title. He is now the CEO of Studio Business Group, which is a new formation, and a gentleman by the name of Hideaki Nishino is the CEO of Platform Business Group. To me, I believe there are like more specific definitions out there of these, new titles, but it seems like, Herman's kind of on the game side and Hideaki is kind of on the hardware and, business relations kind of side.
Yeah.
I believe new responsibilities for Herman include, it's not exactly phrased this way, but like adapting PlayStation IP to different mediums. So, probably movies and TV, that sort of thing.
Right.
So it's just a quick little thing, but like, yeah, Jim Ryan's no longer with the company after, I don't know if he's retiring necessarily, but he, left the company, and now they have this new dual CEO.
I will steal a joke from Daniel Ahmed, who's at ZHugeEX on Twitter. But he said PlayStation now has 2 CEOs, one to announce a new game and the other to announce the remake shortly after. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, this one, kind of interesting news. The role kind of splitting up. Interested to see how this works going forward, but that's all we can really say about it.
Yeah, I wonder if this will create less work for both of them, or because of the new responsibilities, more work for both of them, or if it just makes sense to split them up into 2 jobs. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, we'll find out more, and we'll talk about it on future episodes if anything happens. So stay tuned. And of course, the best way to do that is to subscribe on YouTube and follow on whatever podcast listening platform you're listening to this on. And of course, thank you guys all for the support. Next up, it's kind of going into the big one here, ladies and gentlemen, because it's all about Assassin's Creed. Now, a few years ago, Ubisoft, probably in hopes of getting out in front of the leakers and the hackers and the cheats and scoundrels and the reporters, sorry, one of those did not belong there, they announced a game called Assassin's Creed Codename Red. Now, they also announced Assassin's Creed Codename Jade and Assassin's Creed Codename Hex, which I believe Hex has to do with witches, by the way. Pretty cool. But nevertheless, those are still not what we're going to talk about. Today, we're going to talk about Codename Red, which has been renamed, or I guess officially named, as Assassin's Creed Shadows, a game that Nick gave an 8.3 out of 10 to the title name, just the title. We haven't played the game because it comes out on November 15th. Our live reaction to the trailer is on the channel, or will be up on the channel. But Nick, just kind of quickly, what'd you think? I think I could sum up my thoughts pretty fast, but I wanted to give you a chance first before I swept it away.
Yeah, it looks interesting for the modern era of Assassin's Creed. Uh, I think the feudal Japan setting is an interesting one that a lot of fans have been wanting to see explored. So, like I said in the reactions, I'm kind of surprised it's taken them this long to get to here, but we're here now. And yeah, both you and I were remarking at how at least this is a primarily cinematic trailer throughout most of it that they showed off today, and it felt unlike Assassin's Creed for a good part of it, and then eventually kind of starts layering in those vibes, and basically whenever a character puts on a hood and everything, that kind of clues you into
wait a minute,
we're in Assassin's Creed world here. But yeah, it seems interesting. I think it's funny because around when Ghost of Tsushima came out, everybody was kind of like, oh, it's like a samurai Assassin's Creed, and now I have a feeling a bunch of people are going to be like, oh, it's kind of like Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah.
Like, they're just going to be in a circle here. But yeah, I mean, I think it looks interesting. I'm more interested in seeing some gameplay in the future before I make up a definitive thought process words on that. But yeah, what did you think, Street?
I think I'm on the same boat, right? I do think that we'll talk about it more kind of definitively when next month, when we hopefully get the kind of the gameplay and stuff on June 10th during the Ubisoft Forward, during the Summer of Gaming or Summer Game Fest, whatever it's called. But that really kind of brings me, what you were saying though, Nick, brings me to the main topic of this episode. We're going to talk more about Assassin's Creed Shadows in just a little bit as well. We're going to talk about some of the details we have about the game. But should Ubisoft retire the name Assassin's Creed, the Assassin's Creed franchise as a whole? This has been a thought that's been kicking around in my head for a while. In fact, I originally wrote this down not as a podcast topic, but it was an article topic that I was going to do. And I still might write that piece one day, but I thought this would be an interesting way to kind of get that conversation started, because I think that there was something very distinct about Assassin's Creed, at least the first 2, 3, 4. It could be that it was just kind of like Ezio, and like that's the thing that felt very Assassin's Creed. And I also understand, like I said, we've talked about it a few episodes ago about Ubisoft, that Black Flag sold really well. So it's not like the golden age of Assassin's Creed is over. In fact, I think by that metric, that's the reason why we're getting more and more of Assassin's Creed games, because Valhalla is one of their most money-making games in the entire franchise. It made over $1 billion or something like that. So obviously they're going to keep making more of them. But for me, I think that Assassin's Creed's kind of, and I really actually don't even think it's stealth. I know a lot of people kind of say, oh, the stealth is what makes Assassin's Creed, but I don't even know if that's necessarily the case. I just think that there's a certain aesthetic, certain vibe, certain tone that Assassin's Creed has, which this trailer very distinctly doesn't have. Like it's a different trailer, other than obviously they like Nick was saying, there's when the hood comes up, you're like, it's Assassin's Creed, and then you have a hidden blade, but then it goes to the side, so it's like iterations on stuff that did we was that the thing people were like when they wanted a gameplay innovation where they're like, imagine this, the hidden blade goes to the side. I don't necessarily
hidden blades.
Right. I don't necessarily think so. But that being said, I think that the idea that that what Ubisoft has turned Assassin's Creed into, which is essentially a series where you can just get small little injections of other cultures. If that is the case, I'd be fine with it. I just don't know if that's necessarily I don't know if that's the Assassin's Creed name is the one to use for that. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, I think there's like some other name. Like, it's, and this isn't foreign to Ubisoft. I mean, The Crew, relatively speaking, is a new IP. Like you know, like it's I think 2013, 14, but still relatively like it was a came out of nowhere, just like Assassin's Creed did, like just a random IP. And so first of all, that's how you know they can start IPs, and Ubisoft is willing to kind of invest in these new IPs. But also, the flip side of that is that they're also good at not ignoring IPs, like Splinter Cell. Where's the last Splinter Cell? We just keep hearing, oh, there's something happening about it. So it's not like they're always, you know, pumping out new versions of their IPs. So I do think now would be a good time. Obviously, that's not going to freaking happen with 3 other Assassin's Creeds on the way. And, you know, obviously not to mention Infinity, which is the kind of the core of the future of Assassin's Creed. But what do you think? What are your thoughts, Nick, about what everything I just spat out?
Yeah, I think obviously, like you said, Assassin's Creed is too recognizable that I don't think that they are going to ever drop the name unless they are like, you know, studios closing, like we can't make these games anymore or something like that. Like if they are pushed to that point, like I could see that happening. But I feel like, you know, obviously from like the consumer perspective, you know, we like getting things that we like, right? But this is something that I kind of mentioned a couple episodes ago, where it's like I specifically, me, like missing my games from my franchises before getting another installment.
Right.
And that just doesn't happen with a like yearly or bi-yearly release cadence.
Yeah.
And Assassin's Creed kind of fluctuates in that. Like they were yearly for a while, then they went to the bi-yearly, and then is this one like 3 years? I guess.
Yes, I think so. Because 2021, I think,
Valhalla.
was when Valhalla came out.
So yeah, they kind of fluctuate on that, but I feel like we've had so many of them that like even though it's been a 3-year gap, it still feels like we've just been having them releasing all the way up to this point.
Yeah.
And so
and I think part of that as well is that like and here's first of all, Jock Average in chat says Assassin's Creed will only end when Ubisoft sees a significant reduction in revenue from the franchise IMO. Very fair point. Now, the thing that I just wanted to kind of run off of that real fast is that, to their credit, they are supporting their games pretty well as well. So Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I believe until this year, or maybe until 2023, it was kept getting DLC and new updates and content and stuff like that. I have to respect a developer's, you know, or a publisher's commitment to kind of continually updating a game and providing more content, even if it is paid or, you know, whatever it is. But regardless of that, I think there's quite a significant group of people that feel that Odyssey and Valhalla just are not. They don't feel Assassin's Creed. You know, I played. Was it Origins? I think was in Egypt. I played the Egypt one, and I didn't. I personally, I was like, I didn't feel like it was the Assassin's Creed that I don't know. It didn't feel like Assassin's Creed to me. It was just, I don't know, something about it didn't quite click. Maybe it was the openness. Like it was kind of all flat, and you know, you kind of have to use a camel or something to get around, and it didn't quite work for me.
Do you think that is specifically a gameplay kind of thing that is making that distinction? Because obviously, like you look at pictures from it, or at least I do, and I see, you know, I still see the hooded figure, I see the hidden blades, I see, you know, the hallmarks of an Assassin's Creed game. But like, yeah, you're not alone in
that's the perfect thing that you pointed out. I think it really says it is that you know, they feel like they're wearing the costume, but it's not what it is on the inside, and it almost feels like, you know, they're trying to like it's like a, you know, giving a dog a pill. You know, you put like the pill in like a food, and you're like, yeah, it's new food, and you eat it, and it's like, it's a fucking medicine or whatever. It's similar in terms of like, you know, it's this Assassin's Creed packaging, but you go in and you're like, this doesn't really feel Assassin's Creed, and like the stories here don't really feel like they're in like, you know, feel like that universe, or I don't know. I think it is gameplay wise, and it's not even gameplay either. It's also gameplay design wise, like the way the map works. Like you still have like the familiar the beats, right? I'll say overarching beats of gameplay beats, not even story beats, right? Gameplay beats. You have those still that are similar. You know, you still go up these high spots, synchronize, and then all that stuff. But it doesn't have the kind of the core, the heart. And I think part of that aspect is also, you know, the first 3 games, pretty much up until Revelations, were almost like one arc. You know, like they were kind of, they all had, they were, there was progression in terms of like tone. I think the tone across the 3 those Ubisoft those first Assassin's Creed games did evolve, but regardless, it had one kind of cohesive feeling to it, and it would be like if a Far Cry, for example, the first 3 Far Cry games were about one character, and then like 4, 5, 6 were just like all over the place. I think Far Cry can do this because Far Cry is that like, hey, every game is going to be a random playground where you can just fuck around, and that's the selling point. I don't think, at least for me, I don't think that's the selling point of Assassin's Creed for me, which is ultimately why I don't know. I don't think we should keep milking that cow. That being said, this new Assassin's Creed coming out November 15th, my interest is kind of peaked based off of this trailer, and I'm going to go in, but I'm not going to go in just because it's Assassin's Creed. I'm going to go in because I just like the vibe, which is not Assassin's Creed.
Right. Yeah, I think it's kind of I have a parallel that I've drawn, which is I'm not sure if I've shared this on podcast or with you specifically, Sri, but for kind of like years now, I've been of the belief that Call of Duty Zombies is so tonally different from the other parts of Call of Duty games, and it seems like that's where all of the the wacky kind of creativity was in the zombies mode with, the different Perca-Colas, the different like boss type enemies,
and the overarching plot too. That's like a crazy weird trip.
The plot, the level design, like everything is so drastically different from Call of Duty that I'm like, they should just take that and spin that off into its own series and like make it, actually have like a more cohesive story. I'm not saying that Zombies doesn't have that, but like most of it's from what I'm aware of is told through like Easter eggs and like stuff that you find, doing random challenges on the map. Like if they had a more cohesive, like more typical structure to it, like I think that it could easily be like as successful. Now, obviously they want that packaged in with new Call of Duty releases because that's a big part of it. It's like, Call of Duty just having multiplayer or whatever. Battlefield's tried that a couple times to varying degrees of success, but I see it as sort of a similar parallel here in this conversation that we're having with, like, it does seem like, they're even experimenting with it with Assassin's Creed Mirage kind of being like, the
standalone
classic style Assassin's Creed, whereas you have these newer ones which have more of the like, open world RPG elements baked in with them. So I don't know if that's like, if they are drastically different enough to be able to like say like, this is not Assassin's Creed, this is History Creed or something. Like,
and again, I also think that, like, that you bring up a good point. First of all, Austin in chat says Shadows should not be an Assassin's Creed game. That's exactly what we're talking about here. It's and that's the frustrating thing too, is that like you can't even be like, oh, vote with your wallet, because like the game looks good, I want to play it. It's just that I don't think it should be Assassin's Creed. But by buying the game because it looks good, I then play into Ubisoft's hand of like, Assassin's Creed must be selling this franchise. That's what it is. Maybe I'm too cynical in chat, but canon no longer matters to publicly traded company in 2024. What in the Disney are you talking about? How fucking dare you?
I do think that certain companies, that is absolutely accurate. Where like, just put the name on it, it won't matter. They'll buy it.
Well, like do the new ones even have like the Animus stuff anymore? Like, I haven't played Valhalla. I by the way, like I said, I'm a scumbag. I did buy Valhalla. Just like Nick will buy any Fallout game day one, I'll be there for Assassin's Creed that was a similar way. But I haven't played Valhalla, And if I'm being honest, this always happens where I'm like, oh, this new game coming out that I like kind of want to play is coming out, and so I'll play something in my backlog that maybe feels a little bit inspired by it, but like I don't want to play Valhalla. Everyone I hear is like, yeah, it took me 80 hours to play the game, and so maybe I'll play Syndicate because Syndicate's been one I've been wanting to play for a long time. By the way, I even played Unity, and I liked Unity. Just to give you guys context, that's how much I like Assassin's Creed. Granted, I played it like 2 years after it came out. Like I bought it, and then I eventually booted it up and played it like 2 years after it came out. So like patches and everything had gone through. So I actually might be one of the few people who had like literally, not exaggerating, 0 bugs. I think when I played Unity, I did not really have any hiccups with that game. So that's how you got to do it. Just wait 2 years once the patch has gone through, and then play Assassin's Creed.
I think something that you mentioned there, Sri, is something that I want to bounce off of and talk about with Shadows specifically.
Yes, yeah.
Yves Guillemot, head of Ubisoft, he kind of, famously a couple years ago was going against the consumer grain and being like, our games are going to be bigger than ever. Like that's like our selling point is Assassin's Creed. And I think they've since kind of, walked back on that a little bit, or like maybe talked him down a little bit on that stance.
Yeah.
And I'll be really interested to see how that specifically folds into Shadows, because obviously Mirage was, comparatively speaking to the newer games, was a shorter game. I still think he's, somewhere in that like 15-20 plus hour range for that one.
Yeah.
But like I'll be really interested to see if this is going to be another Valhalla situation where this is like 100-hour epic, or if this is going to be kind of reeled in a little bit more. Obviously we can't really get a sense of that from the trailer, just because it's, they're showing like a, or teasing it a grand narrative. So I could really see it go either way. But I think most people would find it as a benefit to not be 100 hours.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing. There could be like 100 hours of kind of gameplay in there. I just think that the main story should be focused. But again, that's just me. I think like am I right? Like the first Assassin's Creed was like 15 hours. I think something.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I think that's like the sweet spot. But let's talk about this upcoming Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed Shadows. Like I said, it's coming out November 15th. And it's going to be next gen only. It's PS5, Xbox Series XS, and PC, and it's going to be running on the updated Anvil engine. So everything's going to be hopefully just sharper and kind of higher fidelity. Which again, I think that was mainly a CG trailer, right, that we saw, but I thought that it looked really nice. Anyway, so. The game takes place in feudal Japan in the year of 1579 during the Azuchi Momoyama period. In perfect timing, Austin says, "Can we talk about how feudal Japan is quickly becoming a new setting for every game? Not sure how we made the jump from that to that from outer space." Yeah, well, I think there was like was it two Summer Game Fests ago? There's like, or maybe like a Game Awards ago, there was just like every other game was space, and I think now we are coming to a point where, well, I think today, right, today or tomorrow, Ghost of Tsushima comes out on PC, so there's that, and yeah, there's Rise of Ronin, which I actually think Austin played, or is playing. I don't know if you beat the game, and there's one other
companies,
and Like a Dragon also had one. Ishin.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's just companies following From Software, but being a couple years too late. They put out Sekiro, and everybody has to hop on the samurai train. They put out Bloodborne. Everything's got to be like Lies of P. A couple years, we'll get big fantasy sweeping games like Elden Ring with giant glowing trees. Like that's
right that you can see far in the distance. Austin says he's 30 hours in, so there you go, sizable game. Now, there are 2 protagonists in Assassin's Creed Shadows. We've seen them both in the trailer. One is Nao, Naoe, and she is she's the excuse me, she's the assassin. Then there's Yasuke, who's a historical character, right? Like who's like a a real person who is the black samurai is like, and that's like a, as far as I understand, real. Like, I want to make that clear because I see a lot of people being like, can't believe Ubisoft's peddling the woke shit again. Like, let's take a step back here, guys. Let's calm down here. I realized I just ranted for like 10 minutes about how there shouldn't be an Assassin's Creed games. But let's not get carried away. So the time period sees a range of activity, including Portuguese merchants. There's obviously samurai, shinobi, Jesuit missionaries, etc. Now, to answer Nick's inquiry or maybe question earlier, so it will have a large open world as big as Assassin's Creed Origins. So that's pretty sizable.
My heart stopped a little there. I thought you were going to say Valhalla. And I was going to be like, are you serious? Like, what?
Origins
is different.
Origins is a pretty big one, though. And again, that was the one I'm talking about. I hope it's not as just flat as that. Or, again, like, for me, a horseback riding is only used for, like, between the stuff, right? Like, that's what you used it for. You don't necessarily use it in towns. So I don't know. I would. We'll see. I'm sure there's some like horseback riding will be a huge thing in this game. But anyway, so there are set personal quests where you play as one character or the other of the two protagonists, but you can also switch between them when you're in the open world. And here you go. So Yasuke is actually a real historical figure who was brought to Japan by a Jesuit missionary and then became a samurai and served Oda Nobunaga. Holy shit, dude. Took me so long. Neo, why do I even bother with these names? Is an agile shinobi who likes stealth but knows how to fight and can use grappling hook to traverse the environments, and physics-based so it can be improbable. And let's see. Oh, and Yasuke, his fighting style is more direct, with parries, breaking enemy armor plates, and decapitation finishers, etc. It's going to be violent. Valhalla is pretty violent as well, just overall. Now, enemies can also now be knocked down if players want a more pacifist playthrough. So if you don't want to like actually kill everyone that you see, the team that developed the game, they pushed on more destructibility and sliceable objects with damage realistically replicated with sword slices. And there's also like, arrow puncture marks and stuff like that. And players can now go prone to sneak around, which is actually pretty awesome. One thing that I thought highlights the new Anvil engine, like some of the upgrades that are a byproduct of that. So the game has fully dynamic lighting system, which is illuminated by sunlight, torches, and lanterns. So like everything kind of it feels kind of in world and natural. The game also has 4 different seasons: spring, summer, fall, winter. Now, one thing that's interesting is that each season brings with it environment and gameplay changes. So if you, for example, you can crawl underwater. Like if you go prone, you can crawl underwater in a pond during the summer, but that pond will freeze over in the winter. Or like grass will grow tall in the spring, which is perfect for hiding. But then in the fall, the leaves will fall, so you won't be able to do that. So stuff like that kind of change the gameplay and change how you sorry, I just punched my mic. Will change how you approach every kind of gameplay scenario depending on what time of day and what season it is. So do
you think that that's like a hint that this is like maybe different chapters or like set over a longer period of time if they have different
No, because I think
like
Valhalla is also like there's seasons, right? Like you like over time you just progress through. There's like a right? Am I wrong? Is there a season cycle in
I never played it.
Yeah, no, I'll look it up. But no, I thought that was interesting. I am interested in the Assassin's Creed Valhalla has seasons with Ravensthorpe changing throughout the year based on the season. For example, the first post-launch season, Yule season. Oh, that's the season this thing's talking about? What the dude, okay. Okay, first of all, let me just get off the Assassin's Creed high horse a little bit and talk about how AI blows sometimes. All right. So Google, if you Google shit now, it goes to AI. Like it like an AI summary comes up, and what that does is, one, sometimes it doesn't answer the fucking question you want. Here, I guess, maybe people were talking about like seasons, so I guess sure that answers some of your questions, but like I didn't need this overview, and then it cites its sources, but like these are 3 different sources that are now not getting the clicks. Because the AI is summing it up. Like, you don't get the clicks, you don't get the ads, you don't get like all that shit. So it really screws up with website analytics. I'll tell you that much for sure. I'll tell you that for free, in fact. But anyway, I digress. I don't know if Valhalla has seasons. But I do think that seasons as in like spring, summer, fall, winter, etc. But no, I think that's cool though. I think that the map, it doesn't have to be big. It would be much more interesting if the map just kind of dynamically evolved so that playthroughs change. If you wanted to go back, or you wanted to go back to a different area, it almost feels like a different area. Because, like I said, or if summer in one area, it will be different from winter in another area. Just kind of gameplay wise, right? Like how you can approach certain things will be different. And so I think stuff like that is interesting. You can also hide in shadows to escape enemies. So it has similar kind of like, light mechanics. So you can, if there's lanterns and stuff, you can take them out, similar to like Splinter Cell, which I thought was pretty cool. You can also create a customizable hideout, or you'll, just kind of be, I guess, your hub, where you can grow and train your own league of shinobi. This is also where you can craft new gear, interact with the characters, and choose your base's layouts, decorations, all that stuff. It's like base building from Fallout 4. There you go.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that doesn't really excite me. Like whatever I'm, thinking about an Assassin's Creed or whatever. Like even in Fallout, like I engage with it occasionally, but like it's, whenever you hear, this is where you train up your assassins and stuff, it's just like, no, I want to be going out and like swinging on grappling hooks and jumping from high points onto people. Like I don't want to be, managing a bunch of assassins or all that stuff. Like, I mean, I know people like it and stuff. Well, it's just something that doesn't really excite me.
Yeah, no, that's certainly fair. I think I always view these as signs of like they really expect you to get stuck in. So I think usually in my case, I'll mess around with these things and like for a little bit until I get to look nice like once, and then I'm like, all right, I'm good. This is my place. This is what it is. But to their credit, Assassin's Creed 2 also had like those base building. They had to like all that kind of stuff. Not like how Fallout does it, where you're customizing items specifically, but like you're still building up your numbers, etc.
Yeah, me real quick, Sri.
Yes.
Bethesda fan here. Starfield, I put like one glass room on one planet and then made like an XP farm, and that's like all.
And it's funny because like I will say one of the funny things like I really think that was such a weird experience for me, because I don't really do that kind of stuff where like it's not on stream. We literally just played it at our own pace by ourselves, but we'd like actively be like, hey dude, I did this. And so I remember like I would text Nick. I was like, dude, I just bought an apartment on Neon, and like here's what it looks like. Oh shit, I can't afford anything. I'll do it later. So yeah, that was I enjoyed that whole experience. And also it sucked that after the end, I'm not going to say what the ending is in case anyone hasn't played it, but after the end I lost my the new game plus, I lost my apartment. So that kind of sucked. So there last things about Assassin's Creed Shadows. There are big castles that act as significant landmarks, and they're essentially like sort of like dungeons in the overworld in the open world that you can kind of explore. And the last one. Now this again perfectly, I think, loops it back to the main topic that we're gonna talk about. By the way, shout out to Shinobi for this summarizing and write up, because it really kind of details everything you need to really know about Assassin's Creed Shadows so far. So there are no more synchronization points in Assassin's Creed Shadows that reveal all the points of interest on the map. Instead, they act as high vantage points that let you look and discover them for yourself.
Oh my God, that's the most significant innovation we've heard this entire stream. That's insane to me.
Yes. And again, you're getting rid of synchronization points. Just do something different, man. I don't know. I digress. I won't keep beating that dead horse. I've made a lot of horse analogies this episode. I'll have to digress on that. But yeah,
that's crazy. I wonder if that's gonna have an impact on how they actually design the world and the levels, because I feel like so many of their games that use that system of like, throw all the markers on the compass and the map and stuff. Like, I feel like that has to have like a pretty significant impact on that. I mean, everything needs to be much more visual and stand out at like a glance. That maybe they. I mean,
it's really got to focus on that game design. The level design will have to is where the focus will be. Whereas I think if you do get a synchronization point, you go up, sync it, you get random markers. And there's, benefits to that as well. Obviously, you can kind of find like the little kind of nooks and crannies that you might not have missed otherwise. But also, that's kind of the satisfaction of having an open world where you organically explore and not just kind of like, oh, there's a marker over there, I'll just go over there. I think it kind of brings it a little bit closer, I think, to the exploration and feel and discovery of like a Skyrim, where you're just kind of exploring and you might stumble upon something, but it's not necessarily that you're just going towards whatever it is to complete the level of the area, like complete the synchronization and whatnot. I don't even know if there's like that kind of stuff is still in the game regarding like the synchronization and stuff, but we'll find out more about that during the gameplay reveal, hopefully next month. Now, this stuff, I'm excited for. This is a segment that I pitched to Nick at the end of last episode, and we're going to give it a go. It's called Like This, Try That. And the concept is very simple. Every time we come to this segment, we present to you one thing that you might like, and then another thing that you might like because you like that first thing. Is that a good description of that? I probably could have said that better.
I think it was fine.
So, Nick, just because you might want to reword or rephrase however you would, I'll go in first. Now, here's the thing: we are a gaming podcast, but we will do this is kind of our avenue to mix and match things a little bit. I watch a lot of movies. I read some books, so like I want to give myself the freedom to suggest different things. So, I'm gonna start with a little bit of a curveball right off the bat. If you liked Naughty Dog's The Last of Us, then try watching Andrew Garland's Civil War. The movie, depending on when you're listening to this, is probably still in theaters, but it is very good, and I won't ruin too much about it other than the fact that it feels a little bit like post-apocalyptic, and quite a bit of it is also themed around a road trip. That's all I'll really say, but the movie has really kind of tense pocket of moments that then have moment of breathing where you can kind of have these character interactions that are fun and lighthearted or just kind of endearing, and then it goes back to these tense pockets of moments. So definitely check it out. I watched it in theaters. I watched it in IMAX actually, and was just totally blown away. It has some great visual just set pieces as well. But yeah, that's my recommendation.
Right on. Mine would be, if you like the game Hades,
try Hades too.
Enter the Gungeon.
Who made Enter the Gungeon? Do you know off the top of your head? I don't mean to put you on the...
Enter the Gungeon is made by Dodge Roll Games. They are pretty much, they've made Enter the Gungeon. They made a spin-off called Exit the Gungeon that was on Apple Arcade and is now on PC and I think maybe Switch. And they
came out
also
in 2016.
And they also have Enter the Gungeon House of the Gun Dead, which is exclusive to arcades and is an arcade.
Wow, really?
Shooter. Yeah,
That's pretty
in
cool. And it's
in
published by
2024.
Devolver Digital, so it makes sense why it's on this list.
Yeah, Gungeon is, depending on who you ask, I feel like people will either put Hades or Gungeon at the top of their list for roguelike games.
Sure.
And Gungeon was the first one that really got its hooks into me, and I really enjoy this game. I got the platinum trophy on this in a couple years back because I loved it so much and I was so like addicted to it
Right.
at the time. Kind of like Hades, it has multiple floors, boss fight at every floor. Floors are randomized, and you get these different weapons and different items that give you passive abilities
Mm-hmm.
while you play. And so much about it, like about Gungeon, is getting these synchronizations. So basically, like certain weapons, like if you have two weapons that synchronize together, it'll give you a new weapon that like kind of combines both of the abilities of those guns, or gives them a different sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's different passives that like if you're having a good run, you get like super overpowered, and it has that nice roguelike quality where it's like, oh, this is like a god run that I'm going on right now, where like
Right.
I can basically breathe and I kill everything in the room kind of thing. Unlike Hades, which I know that Hades has ranged options, but it's more primarily like dashing and melee weapon kind of focused. Gungeon very much is like a bullet hell with a roguelike. Like
Mm.
your arenas and bosses, you'll be covered with shots that you have to try to dodge or like remedy. But all of the mechanics are like super tight. The art style is really charming. It's a pretty funny game. A lot of the guns are like references to different games and all that.
Mm.
And yeah, like if you're looking for another roguelike to get really attached to, like Hades, I would definitely say give Gungeon a try. It's one of my favorite games in the roguelike genre.
You know what? I'm really not a big roguelike person. I just haven't gotten the chance to play. I don't know. Like none of them really have gotten their hooks into me. Granted, like I haven't played either of the games that you just said, but the one that I do remember I played quite a bit of is it's funny. It's funny that I thought of it because they're a developer that I think are pretty hot on your list right about now. But it's a game called Going Under. Do you know who developed this game, Nick? Here's a hint. It's
Not
published
sure.
by Team 17 Digital. Shout out. We love
Gotcha.
So it is Agro Club. Or sorry, Agro Crab. Jesus Christ. Agro Crab is a developer of Going Under, who, of course, just released a small little game called Another Crab's Treasure.
Another Crab's Treasure. Yeah, I was wondering what their
So
they said that was their second game, and I was like, I wonder what the first one was.
So Going Under was their first one, and it had this it was like so approachable for me. I had it on the Nintendo Switch, and it was so easy to just hop in, you play a little bit. It has nice colors. It's not like dark or oppressive or anything, and it was just fun. It's wacky. You had a little bit of it doesn't take itself too seriously. A lot of kind of tongue in cheek humor. So there you go. I'll just throw that out there. But with that said, for the final time, no, probably the second final time of this episode, it's time to check the inbox. Of course, our favorite segment of the show. There's quite a few items to go through, and I suppose there's no better place to start than a roguelike, a game called The Land Beneath Us. Dear Villagers publishing label from Montpellier, France, is partnering up with Fair Play Studios, which is an indie game development studio from Thailand, to bring you a unique blend of turn-based roguelike dungeon crawler called The Land Beneath Us. The game is out now on PC via Steam and Epic Game Store, Xbox Series XS, PlayStation 5, and the Nintendo Switch. Looks nice. Looks just a simple, or at least, I mean, again, I might be a terrible judge of this in terms of like, I won't be able to tell you if it's simple in a good way or a bad way, but I thought it looked cool. I like the art style, and just kind of I'm a sucker for like just kind of effects, like when like there's like just things smoldering, or like you see like ash, like embers flying, like fog, that kind of stuff, the volumetric stuff, all that. I'm a sucker for that stuff. It's like instantly, I think, makes your game just look cooler. You know what I mean? Next up, this one, I'm just kind of curious as to what you think about it, Nick, and maybe some of you guys listening will probably have something to say about it as well. It's called Deathbound, one word, and it is a party-based Souls-like, and it's coming to consoles. Set in a ruthless dark fantasy where faith and science were never more at odds, the unforgiving world of Deathbound is brimming with appalling creatures and unyielding warriors. The unholy crusade cannot be forged alone, as players must call upon Zemnal's dead for any hope of survival. So this is a one-of-a-kind 4-hero Souls-like party game. Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. It looks a little, visually, I think that it could be a little bit better. I think it doesn't have maybe quite that defining quality that brings it all together, but it doesn't have a solid release date yet, and all we know is coming out to PS5, Xbox Series XS, and PC via Steam, GOG, and Epic Game Store in 2024. So when in 2024, we don't know. But there is a demo that you can check out on Steam right now if you wanted to see it for yourself and give it a go. So
yeah, I think I saw Iron Pineapple play the demo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it kind of has like an interesting sort of mechanic with those characters that you were saying, because I think you can switch between them even as a single player. Like, I don't think it's like locked to co-op.
Yeah, so actually, if I read it correctly, it says bind with fallen warriors found throughout the world and dynamically transform between each character seamlessly mid-combat with Deathbound's one-of-a-kind 4-hero Souls-like party system. That, I think I may have butchered that in translation when I was reading it, but yes, yeah.
Or Souls-likes, though. Yeah, I think the art style, like, I like the logo. The name is nice.
Yeah. I would be, again, I think visually is the only thing I'm a little bit hesitant about, but I think just like a party, like a multiplayer party-based Dark Souls game or Souls-like is just sounds pretty cool. So.
Yeah, especially if they kind of...
Oh, wait, actually, hold on. Maybe I'm reading this wrong, because it says in their description on YouTube, on the official trailer, it says a single-player party-based Souls-like. So does this not mean not with friends?
Well, if they say single player party based, that would be specifically like.
That's interesting. So it's not with friends.
Party.
Totally changes it. Well, I mean, either way, you guys got the shout out. Feel free to take it. Feel free to look at it. But that interesting. I'll keep an eye on this one. Closer we get. Next up, we have an interesting one. Just because I thought I haven't really seen a game quite like this, or something quite like this before. So Event Horizon, the Polish developer behind tactical RPGs Tower of Time, is launching the director's cut of their latest game, Dark Envoy, which is a real-time strategy RPG with what they say is a rich cast of recruitable companions to journey with. Now, the base game, Dark Envoy, came out last year. Let's see here. Yeah, October 24th, 2023. It's currently sitting at a mixed recent reviews on Steam, but then mostly positive overall. But what this director's cut is essentially what they're saying is that they've spent 6 months collaborating with community's vision to perfect Dark Envoy's story and balance. So they're tweaking things to make the game better, and then really releasing it as a director's cut. Actually, now that I say it, I think Disco Elysium had done that before, though I think that game also had like budgetary things that they were moving around, so that it could be different. But so this director's cut of Dark Envoy reworks narration and cutscenes to reflect the moral depth that players found in the world around them. New narration establishes the weight of the war between the opposed forces of Arcanum to complement the high-stakes tactical combat present in the original. And Dark Envoy's Director's Cut is out now on Steam for $28, and it also has a 40% off as part of Steam's daily deal. Though I guess you have only a few hours if you're listening to this live before that expires.
Hop on.
But yeah, that was cool. Check it out, Dark Envoy Director's Edition. Again, story changes to and reworked lines like that actually is kind of crazy. A narrative overhaul for a game is I don't know, interesting to me. And I think with that we have last one. So after 2 decades with Firaxis, Jake Solomon and Will Miller launch Midsummer Studios alongside co-founder Nelsie Birch and former Maxis director Grant Rodiak. The team plans to revitalize the life sim genre and empowers players to create and share meaningful stories through play. This one I thought was so actually quite a few people have, I think like Jason Schreier or someone like that actually put out like interviews with the studio and stuff too. But yeah, so it's called Midsummer Studios with an U, by the way, not an O like the movie. And they're just these are people who've worked on like Sid Meier's Civilization, XCOM, The Sims. So this is them kind of bringing all that experience together and trying something new with the sim genre. Now they've launched with here. Let's see. I'll read it right here. So Midsummer launches with $6 million raised from major investors, which is a good start to kind of jumpstart the studio. So what I thought was interesting. So the Transcend Fund led the round of I guess the money raised, joined by a few other people that I won't mention, but specifically I wanted to talk about Krafton, who is the publisher for Callisto Protocol. So they involved to some degree. Again, I don't know how much of that $6 million was Krafton, but interesting. All right, that is it. That is all you needed to know about what's going on in our inbox. Oh, by the way, this is a next generation title. In case you didn't want to confirm that. Nick, I can't believe it, dude. We've done it. We've finished a podcast in under 2 hours, man. I didn't think this was possible. Oh shit, sorry. There's a few things I wanted to plug before we actually end it. First of all, there's a pretty cool game, or at least it looks cool. I haven't played it myself, and maybe I'll play it and share my thoughts on it later. But it's a movie-themed collectible card game called Screenplay CCG. It's out now, and it's on Steam, like I said, I don't know if it's free. Check it out. You can head on over to respawnstation.com and download the game. Check out the game's details and then download the game on Steam for free if you want it. And while you're there, also check out the interview I did with Botany Manor's creative director, Lori DeMay. She's also the founder of Balloon Studios, by the way, which is really cool. Asked her a few questions. She gave some really cool responses. I don't know if you saw this one, Nick, but like I asked her what her influences were, and one of the first ones, it was the first question, really, was not expecting it. Did not expect that game or those influences, but it's still pretty cool. So definitely check it out. It's again available on respawnstation.com. It's an exclusive, guys, and you don't get that stuff anywhere else unless someone else asks the same exact questions. But either way, can't get them anywhere else. Nick, before we end it, anything else you have to say to the people?
No, not really. Assassin's Creed is kind of intriguing as somebody that hasn't played since Revelations, so maybe we'll have to keep an eye out on that for during the summer showcases, like you said.
Yeah,
and
we had discussed like both of us playing the same game at the same time. I don't know if Assassin's Creed is the one to do it, but we'll figure out what game thematic.
That's really gonna depend on that how long to beat time. I'm gonna say that right
now.
Well,
I will see. I was gonna say before this new one comes out, we go back and play an older one, but I also don't know which.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I'm not gonna go commit to a 60-hour game if I don't know if it's a 60-hour game yet. So, not quite sure. But with that said, people. Oh, do you have anything else to say? I don't want to.
No, that was it.
All right. Well, you guys know how it goes. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Please, for the love of God, keep losing subscribers. Actually, right now we've leveled out. All the people that wanted to leave have left. But still, subscribe so we can go up in numbers. Big number, go high, and me happy. And subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. It goes a long way in helping us. And thank you to everybody who already did take a few seconds to drop a rating. We appreciate it. And as always, people, until next time, which is hopefully next week, have a good night, a good morning, and a damn good time. Peace.